This is the Daily Divider show where we pick a story from each day and give you my take. 7 days, 7 divides. Let's get into it. On Monday, the teachers are set to strike nationwide, and Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is blaming unions for putting politics over students. More than 20,000 secondary teachers will walk off the job in a series of strikes, part of a wider industrial action across schools and hospitals. Luxon says the strikes were preordained and a shame for parents and students, but the teachers' union says the government's latest offer was worse than before. This whole week and this whole podcast is going to be focusing primarily on the union and strike action that is happening across the public sector. This mega strike that's happening on the upcoming week, on the week that this podcast is being uploaded, because I really want to emphasize how important and how unprecedented the strike action is, of course. But I really want to emphasize how important it is unions are. This government is so specific. I cannot make that claim that they are the most anti-worker administration that we have seen in history. I think in the 21st century that is definitely the case. The key government, I'm going to take a guess, wasn't as anti-worker as in they were willing to talk to the Council of Trade Unions and other unions to better negotiate. Were they a great government? No. I mean, I think they understood the country more than this in this current crop. But here specifically, I really want to highlight that these are the reasons why the current government is the reason why unions are so beneficial. That entrenching unions, if we are to make a constitution, entrenching unions into the Bill of Rights, into the rights of into the Constitution itself, and entrenching it in law, like Te Tiriti o Waitangi, is so important for any long-term prosperity for this country. All prosperous Western nations have at some point, or currently does, have a thriving union workforce, union-represented workforce. And go to any Western country, any democracy, if they have a degrading union workforce, that will coincide in degrading wages and jobs getting going offshore. That you can see that in any country. I mean, the United States is a good example, and I really hate to. I mean, honestly, I don't want to say it, but even across the pond, we're not the UK. Across the ditch, in Australia themselves, you can see a perfect example of how unions are so beneficial and union representation is so beneficial to an actual prosperous country. Ugh, God, I can't believe I fucking said that. That makes me yuck. And right now, you are seeing this government, specifically National Party, and yeah, sure, ACT, and sure, New Zealand First. You know, they talk a big game about being nationalists and being pro Kiwis, but do they really? They're just the flimsy ideologues that just really actually mostly care about money. I think the only guy in that party is Winston that really has something there, but you know, he was bought ages ago. If the National Party could, I would guarantee, and yeah, you know, you can, of course the ACT Party would. I'm not really going to speak about them. They're not a major party. They won't get past 10%. They might, but I'm hoping they don't. Again, rather, in the next election. The National Party, I'm sure if they could, Crusher Collins, they would break the current public service crop and make it a more obedient advisory organisation like they did with WorkSafe. And make no mistake on that. National was well in support of that. You can hide behind Brooke Van Velden and the ACT Party, and it's just a coalition agreement. You know, that was absolutely the current crop of National Party members are chomping at the bit. They detest you. They detest the fact that they even have to think about you. They detest the fact that they have to think about working with workers because it means they have to stoop to your level. just please join your union. I think that New Zealand has a long history with unions and has a long and glad history, and especially the Labour Party, which has seen them to be a big force in the left, whether people like it or not, whether lefties like it or not. That is why Labour will continue to be, I don't want to go on a tangent here, that's why Labour will continue to be a big part. It's why Labour in Australia are any Western organisation, including Norway and that, because they are foundationally a union party. They have that institutional backing. For better or for worse, for better, obviously, because that's the only way that left-wing organisations can thrive. I mean, name me another form that it can go. If you're a right-winger, you could be an independent. You could easily be an independent and get backed by a millionaire, billionaire, by a company, by big capital. Easy peasy. It's much more difficult. I mean, it's much more difficult if you want to be an independent, which is why if you want to run as independent as a lefty, in this country especially, which is why Labour has been so big and will always be big until another party with that sort of backing, or should I rephrase, with the openness to talk to that sort of backing. The point is for the segment is that unions are big. They're a part of any thriving Western civilization, and if we are going to write a constitution, they need to be ingrained in they need to be weaved in law, so any new government cannot just rip it apart. And I hate to say this, we might have to look at Australia for some tips. And on Tuesday, Education Minister Erica Standford said parents should be furious after rolling teacher strikes hit right before NCEA exams. More than 20,000 secondary teachers have struck over 7 days, including a full-day walkout on October 23rd and more action through early November. Standford accuses union of bad faith bargaining and says students are being let down during a critical time. But the teachers' union argues the government's latest offer, tiny pay rises, no workload relief and no pastoral support, is a backwards step. Labour's Chris Hipkins says the government is more focused on attacking unions than fixing the real problems in school. Erica Standford, I'm going to keep this short. I really thought Erica Standford would be the next in line. Her or Chris Bishop, but honestly, she's really dropping the ball here. Maybe she doesn't want to do a Shane Retty and just get booted out. Maybe that's the case. I'm not too sure. The saying that teachers have not really been paid as well as they should be is a tale as old as time. It's a decades old tale. And I think I have spoken about this, especially when it came to the new NCEA reform, or them booting out the NCEA system, that it would be, and especially this was a concern with the teachers all before this became public, before the strike action became public, that this would add workload to the current crop of teachers, which aren't a lot, and they don't get paid enough even as it is. So the thing is, I like to get inside the head of our current crop of cabinet staffers, including Erica Standford and Chris Luxon, although it is much more difficult to get inside the head of Christopher Luxon than Erica Standford, because I think Erica Standford is much more human and a better politician than thumb drive over there. It is obvious that she knows what's happening. She knows what's going on. She's not stupid. I've already said this. My conspiracy theory is that we will see a slow privatization of our education system and our health system, obviously, but our education system through completely degrading the curriculum, and so stumping any future Labour government from putting the rights that the previous government wronged, thus making it difficult to actually get progress on the country. And I think that the current national government, I think, is seeing the opportunity, the fact that there's been decades since major reform in the 90s and 80s, where everything economically, education, everything shifted in that period. And now, a generation after, and now a couple of decades after, they are seeing an opportunity to set another agenda that they did last time, including that, and they included Roger Douglas, of course. There was agenda set in the 80s, and then they're seeing this opportunity. I think they're going to want to see it economically as well, although I don't think they're doing it quite yet. I think they want to see that when they get into government again next year. Let's hope they don't, but I think they will. Like, they want to set the agenda. They want to set the conversation on how things roll, if that makes any sense, going into the next few decades, for the next 40 years. And I think when it comes to education, this includes Erica Standford. She knows what she's doing. She's not an idiot. And she's not just playing for time. She might have been one of these moderates. She might be one of those moderates in the party that, flim-flams and maybe when she becomes leader, she's a bit better. But as it stands right now, the current outfit, I think, wants to see a shift and to lopside the education system in favour for charter schools. So to make it difficult for the Labour Party, the Labour government, to get rid, to bin charter schools and to make it more expensive for them. Effectively, I think the government is booby-trapping the education system for Labour. So when they come in, it's going to be much more expensive, much more difficult to set the agenda. And then you've got people, I won't say further on the left because I myself am probably further left in Labour, but people that don't know any better crying foul and saying Labour's not doing enough. When in fact it's these guys right now as we speak that are cucking. I'll leave it at that. I don't think there's anything much more to say really on my, I think I've made my point when it came to unions, how important they are. National, I've always been wanting to find a reason to do this. They've always been like this since the first national government in the 50s, I believe. And the fact that people don't learn this is honestly astonishing to me. But that's the benefit of a media system that plays into your hands. And on Wednesday, in her final speech as Wellington Mayor, Troy Whanau laid bare the racist, sexist abuse she faced, false rumours, online harassment and political smear campaigns that took a deep personal toll. Her experience highlights a growing crisis in local politics. Women, Māori and LGBTQIA+ candidates facing relentless digital abuse that drives many out of public life entirely. Experts warn this isn't cruelty, it's a threat to democracy itself, silencing diverse voices and distorting debate, with laws still patchy and social media platforms largely unaccountable. The question is whether New Zealand will act before leaders are bullied out of politics. I think this has really come through the shift, and I'm not saying that you can say otherwise in the comments. There probably are, but I feel like this has been growing, and this has completely exceeded any measure after Jacinda Ardern and after COVID. And I feel like the money that has been pumping into not just national politics, but local government, and you're seeing ACT getting into the game as well. Although I think that's also just an assembly line for new politicians to get into Parliament to gain more experience, but two things can be true at once. You were seeing a lot more of this because of the taxpayers union, ratepayers union, Groundswell, many names, Atlas. They probably got some sort of association in this. You're seeing a lot of capital being pumped, and they don't have to do much because people aren't participating. I can guarantee you, if this was compulsory voting, these guys wouldn't matter. The problem is they're influencing the people that do vote. Not everybody, of course. I think you saw. Unfortunately, I didn't get a video out last week but you saw in the local election where there was, I believe it was 17 Māori wards were kept in, and 25. I don't have the notes with me, but I believe it's 17 in, 25 out. So. And you saw overwhelming, but I mean, in Auckland, there was a 29% turnout. And the overall turnout was 32%. This was low turnout. And it's the same problem that you had with the by-election at Orini Kaipara, getting in at only about 35%. Not a lot. It's not really a mandate, is it? It's more of a papering over the cracks, papering over the cracks, which opens up, 30% of the country voting in local elections. That is almost as that is undemocratic. And look, I have my thoughts on when people don't vote. I don't really want to hear them moan. They have a right to, but in my personal opinion, if you moan and you don't vote, you're an idiot. Even if, I don't have another, fuck off, just vote, you dickhead. That's my opinion on a personal opinion. Although you have a right to complain, we are in a democracy, and I will respect that. And I'm a much more combative when it comes to voting and getting people to vote. I think that you just vote. Obviously you've got this government that have been anti-democratic in their actions when it comes to central government and central elections. But this specifically, local government is becoming undemocratic in a sense, where you've got a very small amount of people voting for the say of millions. I think that the current, not the system, but the current situation is a decaying one. I mean, you're seeing, I believe it was about 35% turnout in the 2022 election in Auckland. It dropped down to 29%, as I said before. This is a decaying situation, and there are many, many, many issues. People can point to, they don't give enough information. Two companies run the local electioneering, and they don't understand what local government does, or blah blah blah. Central government tends to shift any outlay, specifically national-led governments tend to shift any responsibility to local government to make their own books look better, as you're seeing right now when it comes to the new ferries and other infrastructure projects. And all of them are pretty much true. I honestly think, and this goes for both elections, I do think we need to talk about, in-person ballots need to be a thing. It needs to be the case that you can walk into a library and just, do it how we do it in central government normally. You can do mail-in ballots and walk in, and make it a holiday. Make it celebration. Have a barbecue there. Make it fun, like Waitangi Day. Don't make it as dull and shit and boring. I'm not a social person, but god damn it. You just put a bin out in a mall and you just go, yeah, drop it in there. There's nothing there. You seen it. It's just dull. No wonder not many people in the country vote for it. They just think it's some dumbass local school board thing that's not going to impact their lives. Just make it a thing, and that comes for central government as well, but especially local government. Make it a fun community thing, and on top of that, make it compulsory. Make it. God, I can't. I hate Australia. Make it a compulsory thing. Make it. The question is, can that happen? Will people just go, no, it's democratic, I don't like that, and you'll get free speech activists and people that actually benefit to to the current system, like ACT. Go, no, I don't like it, no, it's democratic, it's not free speech. You know damn well that if you can make it compulsory, and if you don't want to vote, just piss on it. It's called a donkey vote. Don't piss on it. That's public urination. Write a penis on it or something like that. If you want to protest and you don't like the current crop, although I think you're a bit of a dumb person. But I've gone on a tangent when it comes to local government now. But I think that is part of the reason. I think if you have more people vote, most of this country aren't assholes. Most people aren't like Ray Chung that would call a councillor a retard, even though he himself, who won only by 45 votes or 46 votes, great job, you bastard. He himself is an old bollocks retard, I'd like to say. But I think that's a bigger thing. And of course, look, Tory whānau got absolutely... I have my criticisms with Tory whānau. Although when it comes to stuff like the Golden Mile, I completely agree. It's more superficial stuff when it comes to her. I think that she was a bit too naive in terms of negotiations. I don't understand why she flipped around being a non-Green member, then a Green member. I just don't think she landed it right. I think Andrew Little coming in, he's much more experienced and much more veteran. He knows what he's doing. He's been in central government. He's been an opposition leader. He knows the fight, and he can take on these. I don't want to say the word again. Dickheads. I don't want to say retard again because Ray Chung is a retard, but I don't want to say that again. That's a bit rude. But she has been treated like absolute crap. I need to stop cursing. And that's probably been the case on obviously local government when it comes to where I live and in Wellington and the regional Wellington area. I'm much more focused on that, and less so across the country. Auckland, of course, but I definitely noticed that, and there's probably been the case across the country as well. And that has been account because of a low turnout, because people just don't pay attention, because most of this country aren't assholes. It's the assholes that vote. I was one of them. I'm a massive one. There's more likelihood of that popping out, is what I'm trying to say. And on Thursday, senior doctors have fired back against Health Minister Simeon Brown after he accused him of putting politics before patients at their annual conference. Brown claimed striking doctors had crossed an ethical line, sparking laughter, boos, and disbelief from the crowd. Doctors say ministers out of touch defending the strikes as a fight for patients against chronic understaffing, burnout, and a collapsing health system. They point out more people missed care every day due to government neglect than from strike action. It's rich, right? It's rich. Saying, and you're getting other commentators saying, crossed an ethical line. Have they not just crossed an ethical line? Of course they have. Isn't leaving your own health infrastructure to rot, leaking hospitals, underpaid staff, overutilized staff that can't do their job because they're too busy doing paperwork that they really don't need to do? Isn't that crossing an ethical line, putting thousands of people lives in risk? They could die because of this government crossing an ethical line against their own citizens. Isn't that crossing an ethical line? Isn't that putting our current health workers in danger because they are more likely under threat from violence for people being frustrated in this current system, and putting under threat because if they get injured from overexertion, not that Simeon Brown himself wouldn't know. Isn't that crossing an ethical line? You know, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. Seems like concern trolling to me. Seems like pearl clutching on Simeon Brown. Don't blame him. It is not his fault for being who he is. He was brought in by Luxon and replaced Retty because, as I suspect, Retty wasn't doing the job fast enough. Retty actually had a brain. He knew what he had disagreements. He was working against the country. Of course he was. He was a minister of the key era. He had some semblance of a realization that if he did it too fast, he would have tomatoes thrown at him, so to speak. Not literally, of course. As in, you would not have this sort of strike action happening. I mean, you would have strikes. Labour in the last government had strikes because they were not good enough when it came to paying health workers. So don't blame Simeon Brown. He is brought in to do a job. He doesn't know a thing. All he knows is how to play the game mediocrely, to front and blame and spin. And is it working? Against, of course, spinning the public against health workers, doctors, nurses. And is it working? No, of course it's not. This is not like the dock workers in the 50s. This is not like any other profession. You wouldn't be able to do this against police. You wouldn't be able to do this against any public service worker. I will admit that. I mean, that's what they did when they first came in. To some ambivalent public service worker that just sits behind, and it's much more easier to get rid of them than someone like this. And this is what this current cabinet doesn't get. Have they realised that they might not win the election, so they're going to do as much as they can? Or has Nicola Willis fucked up so bad that everyone else has to try and account for her massive billion dollar hole that she didn't account for? And so everyone has to make that up? Probably, but everyone's culpable in that. Everyone's involved in that whole debacle, so that's probably a moot point. the ethical line that is being crossed is by this government, and everyone's saying it, of course. Anybody with a brain, anybody with not even humanity, anybody that gets the economy, gets the country, that understands how to run a country, is understanding this. They're doing this because they don't have enough money, because they capped themselves so fucking hard in the first, my apologies, in the first year, that they just have to scramble. And it's the same with the fair pay agreements. They just have to scramble and just find something and borrow billions and billions and billions of dollars because they're not good financial and economic operators of this country. Labor is. Labor in this country is the standard. And that's true. That's probably true for any country bar the UK. I don't know what the hell they're doing over there. They're a mess. And that doesn't mean that's perfect. This country needs reform. Economic operators is not the standard. You need more than that, of course. That's what the Green Party's for, hopefully. And on Friday, Winston Peters is threatening tougher rules for Fonterra if it sells its Anchor and Mainland brands to a French company, Lactalis. A $4 billion deal, he says, will hand control of Kiwi dairy to foreigners. But National and ACT have dismissed his warning, saying it's up to farmers, not politicians. David Seymour quipped that anyone wanting a say should get up at 4 a.m. and milk cows for a few decades. Peters calls Fonterra's leadership complacent, accusing them of selling off New Zealand dairy heritage for short-term gain. There is a big difference when it comes. This is a big shift between superficial liberalism, and this is why I reject being called a liberal. As in, I don't really care about the superficial stuff of I'm a leftist. I'm that. I just think it's all a waste of time but specifically, this is liberalism when it comes to National Act. This idea that, and I think the sentiment is underlying there. Oh well, you hate foreigners. You don't like foreigners. You don't like it that the French, of all people, the French, really. You don't want them in our country. What are you, racist? It's a bit of a sentiment there. I don't know. That might have just been me, but I think it's an underlying sentiment that you get from liberal parties / libertarian like National and libertarian parties like ACT. I hate Winston Peters. I have a love-hate relationship with that man. He is someone that I'm not in good graces with, because if he had a principle, if he had a bone, he would not have allied himself with this current coalition. I don't care for the argument that he's the best thing that's happened to us because he's stopped the worst successes of the right. So, he's folded over the foreign buyers ban. He should have been the one to stop the ferries being sold off. He knows what he's doing, and he just wants to get in power. That's all it is. He might not be as bad, and this is one of it. And is this based around a bit of racism or anti-Frenchness, which I also subscribe to. Of course, any competent New Zealander should subscribe to being anti-French. He is the reincarnation of Muldoon, isn't he? He is that student of that conservative New Zealand, traditional New Zealand conservatism idea of being actually respecting your own country to a fault, but wanting this country to be better. And I believe that. I believe Winston wants that. You might not believe that, but he has many faults. But I do believe that. Does that make him does that make him not a racist? No, he's a massive racist and a massive xenophobe, and there's a lot of faults to him. As in, he loves power and he loves the game. Those are his faults. But he does want this. He does like this country. Shane Jones, on the other hand, nah. I think he's been bought out ages ago. This happening, the sale. I am someone that and also when it came to the new third party brand, a new supermarket brand coming in, I wanted to see a public-private partnership in that, and I wanted to see. And when it comes to business in New Zealand, I want to see New Zealand-owned businesses. I want to see more emphasis on incentivizing that. So, knee-jerk, I don't like that we are selling off our iconic brands to overseas companies for a short-term gain. By definition, I'm against privatization, so as an extension, I'm against privatizing offshoring our assets, ownership to assets, to foreign countries, especially the French. Why? Ew. So I am against that, and I don't know. You could call me a nationalist on that. I'm not. I think nationalism is not a good thing. I mean, we already are a country. I'm a Republican and a not that Republican. Shut up. I'm a Republican and a patriot. I love this country. You know, if I said that in another country, that would be taken completely in a different way. But I do genuinely love it. I don't want to leave to Australia. I don't want to leave to any other country. I do genuinely love this country. And as such, I just feel that right now we are being sold off of our own identity for a quick buck. You know, it happened in the 80s, happened through to the 90s, and even through the sell-off of our of half of our energy sector, or half of each state-owned enterprise, rather. Since growing up, you feel this slow degrade of New Zealand culture, and I don't mean it as in that. I'm not in terms of, you know, the prevalence of Māori language in that. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to New Zealand-owned enterprises just being offshored. And look, this isn't really based around fact. This is just my personal sentiment, and this might be, and you might look at this and go, "What are you talking about? This has always been like this. Australia's always had an influence." And look, that might be true, but I do feel it. I do feel slow dullness, the blob, enveloping us. Globalization is great, but identity is important to have. Globalization is imperative to any prospering country. But again, identity is very important, and I think we risk a danger, and we have risked it, and we have experienced it, a danger of offshoring our identity to other countries, to other state-owned enterprise, to other countries for a short-term gain. I mean, the agreement involved in that sell-off, which hasn't been agreed to, obviously. The farmers are going to vote, the shareholder farmers are going to vote on it. I'm not sure when. But in that agreement would be that they would keep using Kiwi powder milk products and Kiwi-based products for 6 years. 6 years. That's the guarantee. That's disgraceful. I think anyone with a brain can realize that the current economic system of this country, that we're being held up by our agricultural system, is not sustainable. I think it's a miracle, and it's awesome that we have continued as a first world country under the system, under this economy. It's brilliant. It's not going to last long. If our agricultural system completely destroyed, which I'm not saying it will anytime soon, I don't think it will, hopefully. We've really got to diversify, and the current government, I say, banning off our scientific grants for some short-term monetary gain, isn't it? And this is what people need to realize. This government, national, the party are not good economic managers. They do not have a long-term expectation. They do not have a long-term plan. There is nothing ahead of not even a year. Their long-term idea is sell-off. That is it. That is literally it. There is no long-term benefit. Economic growth is just a buzzword. Going for growth is just a buzzword. And look, political parties across the board use buzzwords. The Green Party, Te Pāti Māori, they're famous for it. And the Labour Party, they use buzzwords. Everybody uses buzzwords. It is easy to encapsulate to the voter. But you've got to put some substance behind it. And the National Party don't. They never have. They have been there at the bottom on the feet of Kiwis, dragging us down for decades. It's always been like that. There has been, the only point that has not been the case was when national governments said they would not influence or destroy any programs that the Labour parties put in, and that was taken out ages ago after the Labour Party jumped off the deep end and had an identity crisis. But it was true even for Muldoon when they got rid of superannuation. Superannuation brought in the 70s. Muldoon binned it. The national government. It's always been true. It's always been the national. People need to realise that. And I mean, people have. I use Australia as an example. I don't like to use other countries as an example, but Australia is one of those examples. Like, they're already getting it with the Liberal Party over there. I really hope people get it, and then the national. I think it's going to take a while to get past. On Saturday, Defence Minister Geoff Collins has met with CIA Director John Radcliffe at Langley, making a deepening of New Zealand's intelligence and defence ties with the US rather. Collins, who oversees the GCSB and SIS, has said talks focused on boosting New Zealand's combat capabilities and future cooperation. They make it really hard to give them a compliment, right? Because I gave them a compliment 2 weeks ago, saying that I approve. I think that we do need to find funds for extra. I think we can do a lot of things. We are not as poor as people think we are. We have a lot of money. We have enough money. I try to give them benefits of the doubt. I try to give them credit. And I know that they brought in the FBI. And I know that, and I was well aware of that. And I'm well aware of the current government's attempt, for some reason, to strategically continue to align with the United States. The volatile nature of the US. They're still going to try and do that. They're still making inroads beyond any other country. There is importance. We need more investment in, and then there was news coming out, I think it was a few days ago, that there will be new defence housing being set up in Bulls, which is important. And I have spoken on that, the hypocrisy on getting new boom boom six, but not investing in our current personnel to make it better for defence personnel to, work and to not bow out after getting a private contract. But this isn't it, right? I've always said that what this country needs to do is to lock in with the US. That was not a Freudian. That was just got Trump on the mind. They need to lock in with Australia and with our partners over in the EU. And that comes with defence contracts and other. Why, other than cordial relationship, would you need with the US? What are you trying to do? Because you won't get any tariffs gone rid of, even if you do. What's the benefit? And again, I'm not one of those America bad people, those tankies that sit there and say that, everyone else is great. Russia's doing just defending their territory. No, I'm not one of those morons. Those imbeciles, those naive idiots who want to be the Switzerland of the South Pacific, whatever the fuck that means. What a naive bunch of bullshit. I don't know. I've already made my case on it. There's nothing really more to say other than that. I just really wanted to highlight that on Saturday. Seeing it, because I'm not surprised, but it does make it difficult to give the benefit of the doubt. Because this is important to have. If you want to have an intelligent conversation when it comes to politics and foreign policy and other things that are nuanced, to give credit when it's deserved. But this government just doesn't have it. There's no credit. Where's the credit? I mean, the only credit I have is increased defence spending. But even then, they try to fuck it up. It's just insane. And last but not least, on Sunday, a simple law change to let broadcasters air ads on Sunday has spiraled into a political storm after the BSA ruled that Sean Plunkett's The Platform falls under its authority. Mr. Peters cried Stasi-style censorship, and ACT hinted at scrapping the regulator altogether. Media Minister Paul Goldsmith is caught in the middle, defending free speech while trying to modernise decades-old broadcasting laws for the digital age. This is precious. This happened Thursday, I believe. And I was gonna double dick it in that segment just to speak about it, because this is very funny. But then there was an article that came out on Sunday, so I thought, well, we'll put it in Sunday. Nothing happens on Sunday. Sean Plunket was in the BSA board in 2017, and he resigned because he was apologetic for, I believe it was Harvey Weinstein, or he said poor Harvey Weinstein. Or you've got to feel for Harvey Weinstein. So it's really funny to me that he cries this stuff. But I wanted to speak more on regulation when it comes to online things, online news, because I guess I fall under, or this channel falls under this purview. I think it's really important that this needs to happen. There is a need for more. There's a need for more proactive towards news and commentary, because there is a danger here that I think we've seen play out in the last government, and you're still seeing it now, but it's not as severe, unsurprisingly. I wonder why. You get big money, large amounts of capital, influencing elections that are unregulated, because there's no purview, there's nothing. Then YouTube guidelines don't mean anything, especially if you're a big enough company with a big enough backing. And New Zealand is ripe for that. We are small enough of a country that people have started to really people are starting to not really appreciate journalism in this country, and the degrading system, degrading degrading journalistic landscape in this country is not helping that. And it's ripe for a foreign agent, foreign country, or a big company to pump money into an online social media channel, which is actually just another, OAN. The only difference is that they're 100% a podcast, or they're 100% a YouTube or Facebook organization. And so they don't fall under that purview. So I think there needs to be an inquiry into moving towards being more holistic. They're having to have a more holistic view on online services. How that is seen, I don't know. I mean, you can't have it blanket. I don't think that's the case. I think that there is a bit, it's difficult, right? There needs to be bipartisan agreement in terms of the two major parties having an agreement on this, because it does need a bit more. And hopefully the National Party can see this could become a problem. It would benefit them more than the Labour Party, obviously. So I'm not too sure on that, because it is needed. It is needed to cover. But oh my god, Sean Plunket, he is such a, he's such a four-eyed, crinkly-looking bollock. If you like this video, click like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay up to date with the weekly breakdown, the daily divide, and other bonus content.